Hello, sociology. This is Mr. Janosiak, and I'm coming to you from my home. Our last lesson, we reviewed some of the characteristics of the U.S. social class system. There were six of them: the upper class, the upper middle class, the lower middle class, the working poor, and the underclass. Today, our focus is social mobility. So, the United States has an open class system, which makes social mobility possible. Social mobility is the movement between or within social classes. Sociologists study two types of social mobility: horizontal and vertical. The term horizontal mobility refers to movement within a social class or stratum. When an individual moves from one job to another of equal social ranking, that individual experiences horizontal mobility. An accountant may consider a move from one firm to another an important step up the career ladder. However, if the move does not involve any major change in the accountant's wealth, power, or prestige, sociologists view it as horizontal mobility. If I had to give you a personal example, starting at Stargate this semester was an example of horizontal mobility. I am still a teacher, but I have slowly but surely moved from some pretty tough schools, which didn't pay a lot, to a very good school that pays more. I have advanced horizontally. I am still in the lower middle class. I am making a little bit more money, but my overall wealth, power, and prestige has not changed. Vertical mobility, on the other hand, is the movement between social classes or strata. The monetary and social rewards of promotion from a secretarial to a management position may move an individual from the working class to the lower middle class. This type of mobility can be either upward or downward. So, yes, if you are in the working class and you suddenly are part of the middle class, you have moved up, you have moved vertically in the social structure. However, if you go from being in the upper class to the working poor, you have moved down. You have still moved vertically, but you have moved down. So, to review, horizontal mobility is movement within the same social class. Vertical mobility is moving up and down the different levels. There are two kinds of vertical mobility. When sociologists focus on changes in social position during one person's life, they are studying intragenerational mobility. With intergenerational mobility, however, the focus is on status differences between generations in the same family. For example, the child of a mechanic who becomes a doctor experiences intergenerational mobility. So, again, this is the focus on one person, intrageneral mobility. One thing that is kind of important for the health of the nation is this intergenerational mobility. If particular family units believe that their children have an opportunity to move up the social system, then you can keep usually social peace and social stability. However, if there is long term systemic um, inability of families to move up the social system, that is usually when lower classes become discontented with the social structure. Most Americans believe that all people in the United States are free to reach their own particular level of achievement. They believe that people will rise or fall to various levels according to their efforts and abilities. Although this theory appears to be true, the reality is somewhat different. Yes, this belief is important for the idea of American individualism, that if you just work hard and try hard, you can move up the social class. That is a very important belief in America. However, research, did I go too far? Here we go. Research indicates that even though the majority of Americans reach a higher occupational status than their parents, most remain in the same social class. When individuals do undergo vertical mobility, they rarely move up or down more than one social class. So, really, the get rich story in America, not necessarily true. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It is just far rarer than Americans like to believe. Structural causes of upward mobility. So while individual effort often plays a role in social mobility, sociologists are more interested in the structural causes. These causes include advances in technology, changes in merchandising patterns, and increases in the population's general level of education. When technologies change, the jobs available to workers also change, which can result in downward mobility for individuals caught in the shift. However, it often means upward mobility for the next generation of workers. For example, the disappearance of millions of factory jobs due to mechanization has forced some new workers into higher status jobs, primarily in the service industry. And conversely, mechanization has also forced people who had good paying jobs into lower paying jobs. So theoretically, right, if you have a particular skill set and it makes you a lot of money, that is all well and good. However, if a technological comes around and can do your job for you, and you do not have the skill set to address that technological change, you will most likely go into a lower paying, lower class job. However, with that said, the next generation of workers who grow up around those technologies have generally the ability to get into a new system of work that complements the technological change. Changes in merchandising patterns have also affected social mobility. Recent changes include an explosion in the credit industry, a greater emphasis on insurance, increased real estate transactions, and an extraordinary growth in personal services. These changes have increased the white collar workforce from approximately 31% of all workers in 1940 to 77% today. So, in defense of like the credit industry, while it may be sometimes reckless to borrow lots of money, being able to buy things on credit allows people to do things like buy homes in a social class that they usually would not have available to them. If you are able to get access to a bigger mortgage than what you could traditionally, you can move up into a middle class neighborhood versus being stuck in a lower class neighborhood, theoretically. Another factor that has promoted upward mobility is an increase in the general level of education. The percent of the population aged 25 and older without a high school diploma has shrunk from 75% in 1940 to 15% today. Also, more Americans are going to college. Today, 26% of people 25 and older have earned a bachelor's degree or higher compared to less than 5% in 1940. So yes, it is true. Most more people have gone to college than ever before, and that has increased some people's mobility upwards. With that said, with the increase in both education level, it has at least partially devalued the value of a bachelor degree. And also because people have had to do things like take huge loans, which is the more access to credit, having access to a lot of credit and putting yourself in a lot of debt also can harm your social mobility upwards. I have this graph here, though, just to kind of extrapolate the data, and it kind of breaks down, right, unemployment rate on one side and median earnings on another side tied to education. So yes, less than a high school diploma. You have a 1 in 10 chance of being unemployed, and your weekly median earnings are only going to be about $472 a week. Not a lot of money. And then you can see the growth in wages and the decrease in unemployment level with more and more education. Pause there, look at the graph. Ooh and ah over it. Structural causes of downward mobility. Although upward mobility is more common, movement down the class ladder also occurs. Personal factors such as illness, divorce, and retirement can cause downward mobility. Once again, however, sociologists are more interested in the structural causes of this movement. Changes in the economy are the primary structural causes of downward mobility. Breakthroughs in technology can alter the demand for labor. Workers may suddenly find themselves without jobs, like maybe an example, a pandemic. If these workers are unable to find new jobs with comparable salaries, they may experience downward mobility. For younger workers, the drop in social status is often temporary. However, for older workers, the shift may be permanent. One thing that you should pay attention to, everybody, in the coming, let's say, months, is because of this massive shift in our economic reality and what that reality looks like for workers, right? Mass downward mobility in the social structure often causes stability. Hence, you've seen all the government interventions to try to prevent that mass destabilization of the social structure. Economic changes also can affect intergenerational mobility. In times of economic growth and low unemployment, individuals entering the job market have less difficulty finding desirable employment. However, jobs are less plentiful during an economic recession. As a result, even highly qualified graduates sometimes cannot find jobs in their chosen fields. That is the end of the section about the American class system. I gave you an assignment on Monday, which I hope you looked at. It is an interesting survey, I feel, about kind of the realities of the different classes in America. I hope you learned something looking through that. And we shall meet again on Wednesday. Stay healthy, stay safe. Mr. Jack coming to you from my house.